So earlier in the program, we were discussing what the Bible tells us about gratitude. We were talking about the history of it. And I know that the Word of God is sufficient, but it's also nice to see that the science tells us that, you know what, it's true. Gratitude has positive benefits. It's actually healthy to be grateful. And so let's talk about some of those benefits. And joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Giacomo Bono. He's a professor of psychology at Cal State, and he's the director of the Youth Gratitude Project. He's also co-author of the book Making Grateful Kids, The Science of Building Character. Dr. Bono, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Yes.
So let's start off with, first off, tell us about this Youth Gratitude Project.
Yeah, the main thrust of that work was up until the time. So this is research that I was starting back in 2014. Up until then, most of the research on gratitude had been with adults, and very little was understood about gratitude in youth, children and teenagers. And so with together with my co-author of Jeff Froh on the book Making Grateful Kids, we started researching the benefits of gratitude to children and teenagers, and we started to see some interest, a lot of the same benefits, in terms of mental health. It also seems to counter depression and anxiety. But, one of the surprising findings, I think, at least for me, was that we started to see that gratitude was related to a motivation for generativity, which generativity is about leaving a legacy. And it's usually something that adults, adults in middle adulthood do, as, we get into our 50s, we start to think about, how we're going to impact society in a good way. And what we found was gratitude actually was increasing this generativity motive in teenagers. So anyway, that was quite surprising, because we think that those are concerns that that older adults have, but very much young people want to contribute. They want to be part of something beneficial. And they're really hungry for it, and that's sort of, I think, one of the surprising findings that we made with that research.
Dr. Bono, talk a little bit. You and I were talking about a project where young people were writing thank you notes. Talk a little bit about that and the effect that had of just expressing gratitude.
Yeah. So and this is sort of one of the things that I'm sort of, I guess, that distinguishes my work is, I'm trying to bring in gratitude practices, especially interpersonally, like sharing thanks with others. And I'm trying to just get such practices into schools. And so what we did was I did this intervention using an app. It's called Give Thanks, GIVETHX, and you can find it online. But it's this nonprofit that developed this app that works sort of like social media, in the sense that you could thank others and be thanked by others, and schools sign up. Different classrooms can sign up, even different staff at the school can sign up. The whole school can sign up. And so that's what we did. And for 6 weeks, students and staff and teachers all practiced gratitude on their own terms. Like when they felt ready, they weren't pushed. They thanked, for example, a student would thank a classmate for helping them study, or for helping them, finish a project that they were behind on. Or, if a student was feeling like not speaking up in class, or feeling down, then, receiving a thank you somehow would turn around the whole day for a student who's starting off the day, feeling sort of, hopeless or not great. And just a simple thank you would turn things around. So we collected. So over the course of 6 weeks, we had just over 2,600 thank you notes exchanged. And again, this is all done naturally when when teachers and students felt inclined to do it because they received some gift or benefit from another. And so that's what the intervention involved. It also involved some, journaling and, more reflective types of things that
Were,
adults often use to
Dr.
practice.
Bono, were there some other measurable outcomes in that? I mean, did we see a kind of a change in the atmosphere within those places where gratitude became a focal point?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So surprisingly, we had two different high schools, and one of them received, and basically about half of the classes at both received the intervention, whereas the other half did not. And so then we compared, before the intervention, so at the start, and then 6 weeks later, we compared the classrooms that used the gratitude practices to those that did not. And what we found was that the gratitude practices reduced symptoms of depression. So feeling down, feeling hopeless, feeling unmotivated and uninterested in things, as well as anxiety, especially like general anxiety and social anxiety as well. So we found that gratitude, yeah, led to reductions in depression and anxiety symptoms, but also almost every indicator that we looked at related to well-being. So we found that negative emotions also decreased, positive emotions increased, a sense of life satisfaction increased. And then the one that really surprised me was students reported being more satisfied with their friendships.
Wow.
So, I think that was really cool to see because, teenagers really want the respect of their peers. And if you could make an impact on their friendships, I think that really says a lot.
I mean, it's almost as if gratitude is, it's a vaccination against anxiety and depression. If we just take it and we express it and utilize it. Now, you and I were talking about some research that you've been doing going back to COVID, when there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of uncertainty, and you found some very interesting implications of those who expressed Thanksgiving during that time. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, yeah. That's right. So when the pandemic started in the spring of 2020, I immediately thought, oh, this is something we got to look at. So I retooled a survey that I was already giving to undergraduates, and had it focus on the pandemic. And we measured, things like pandemic resilience, sort of having a constructive view of it, and also coping with the hardship of the pandemic. But believing that some good could come from it nonetheless. And so we measured that kind of resilient perspective or thinking about the pandemic. And we also measured mental health and all those things. And specifically, what I wanted to know from this research was, does gratitude actually make young adults more resilient? And in this case, towards the pandemic. And does it protect young adults in terms of their mental health? And so what we found was that those who the students who were higher in trait gratitude, in other words, gratitude as a personality quality, students who had more grateful personality, they also were being more constructive and resilient about the pandemic. But here was the beautiful thing that we found, that when we looked at changes let's see, about 12 weeks. So, we measured it basically at the beginning of the semester before the pandemic had started, and then at the very end of the semester, once the pandemic was raging. So about 13 weeks. And what we found was that gratitude actually was related with decreases in depression and anxiety. And interestingly enough, I looked at different groups, and I found that some of the students who struggle the most, like For example, first generation students, who are new to college and maybe their families don't understand, they're struggling to adapt. They had even greater benefits from gratitude. So they were protected even more. And when I looked at other things like socioeconomic status, I saw a similar pattern. Gratitude helped protect them from depression and anxiety even more compared to, students who were, socioeconomically, okay or even good. So, what this showed us was that people who are, the groups who are really having difficulty and are really stressed, those people who really need it can especially benefit from gratitude. So anyway, that was
Let's
one of the surprising findings. Yeah.
Well, we just got a few minutes left, Dr. Bono. Let's talk a little bit about that. How, number one, how can we kind of begin to build an attitude of gratitude? What are some practical steps that we can take individually? But also, as you have focused a lot of your research on younger people, how can we begin to instill that into our children? What are some practical steps that we can do, since it has so many benefits to it? How can we begin to practice that?
Yeah, yeah. I think, it's really important to so going back to the high school research that the intervention study that I mentioned earlier. One of the things about that seems so impressive because up to that point, interventions in schools hadn't really shown any effects on mental health. So what was the surprising ingredient? And I really do think that it's taking a chance on people and putting it out there, expressing thanks to others. A lot of times in our lives, we sort of we're doing our thing and we're busy, and we have stresses that might weigh on us. But it's so important to take a chance on people and to see the goodness in people and to put it out there, even if you don't feel confident about it. Small expressions of thanks really matter, like, and even smiles and nonverbal expressions, like a pat on the shoulder to thank somebody, when they were listening to you. Although, that's also a way to express thanks. So that's what I would say is, get out of your shell and just say it, and share the goodness that people bring into your life, because it's a lot of times we forget that we don't know about the good people and the good things in our life. So it's just a good reminder. And it's also a way to not be alone for when we are stressed.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, that's what I would say. Really take a chance and just, give the gift of thanks.
I don't know if you've looked at. I don't know if you've looked at this, but is there a number that we should shoot for each day, that we should be willing to express gratitude? I know sometimes it's easier if we're monitoring things to know whether or not we're reaching a certain goal.
Yeah, yeah, I think like once a day is definitely a good thing, because each day is almost like an odyssey, right? Like you never know what's going to come up, or there's always unexpected things that happen each day, and there's always patterns with each day. Like we may be tired towards the end, and so we wake up with the chance for renewal with each new day. So I think, once a day is certainly a good practice because the challenges always change with each day. And then I would say, challenge yourself to thank somebody, new. Like maybe it's a neighbor one day, or maybe it's the person behind the cash register, at the store the next day. Maybe it's somebody at work on the third day. And just challenge yourself to, sort of hit all the domains of your life, and that has the benefit of keeping the practice of gratitude or the practice of thanking fresh,
Right.
right? Because like anything, you don't want to just do it performatively.
Right.
You want to get your heart into it.
That's right. That's right. And over time, like, I don't know, 18 days, something becomes more of a second nature, becomes kind of a habit, and that's what we want to get into. We want to get into that habit of gratitude. Dr. Bono, I want to thank you for joining us. Always great to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us on this Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Have a joyous Thanksgiving.